Selamat bertemu kembali di TV2, sudah lama kita tidak bersua. Kali ini kita gunakan kesempatan karena saya menjumpai di televisi seorang aktivis sosial media atau aktivis yang juga ahli sosial media bernama Farina Situmorang yang di sebelah saya. We will let her talk since she has been overseas much of the last few years. I think we'll be comfortable talking in English. Atau campur-campur bisa juga ya. This is very informal, but the substance I hope will invigorate a lot of people. So, Farina, where did you find your background in social media, and where did you find your interest in politics, or are they somehow connected?
Yeah, how do I don't even know where to begin, but I'm basically a marketer that has been learning how to market and sell and persuade from the beginning of my career. I've been working mostly in businesses and brands.
Market about commercial goods.
Yeah. So I've worked, and mostly my entire career have been working in technology companies. So technology marketing is my background. I do a lot of...
What's technology marketing?
So I work for companies like Microsoft.
Okay.
I work for IBM. I work for BlackBerry, and the last couple of years I've also spent a lot of times in Silicon Valley. So I work with startups, with entrepreneurs who want to market their products. And mostly their technology products.
Are you currently employed?
Yeah. So I run my own consulting firm since last year, since I've been moving to Indonesia, since I moved here.
The first question is, you seem very active. You've been very influential in the social media and in working with young people. Where do you find the time to do it? Did you have to leave your job to be a volunteer?
Because the nature of my work, it's consulting. It's doing a lot of strategy for different companies and different brands. I took this on as an opportunity for me to, be part of this very exciting election. I assume like you're talking about the election,
yes.
Right? How do I find the time to do that? And also just finding the right resources and finding the right people to work together with me, so I don't have to, work 100 hours per week, even though that's what ended up happening in the last 2 months.
You have never been a political activist before.
No, I've never.
So, what was your entry point? Where was your first contact with this campaign?
So I think it's funny enough. Last year, my interest is data-driven marketing. Mm-hmm. So how we use data and how marketing has changed in the last couple of years. That's kind of like always been my thing. Like I'm very passionate about like looking at analytics in order to do better marketing, to make campaigns or marketing strategy much more efficient. Since you've been working in communications, like 10 years ago, marketers always use like more like feelings or like focus groups, and they're like, oh yeah, red is better than blue or green is better than yellow, and this is why, because this is more emotionally touching. But there's no real substance or data that is driving those decisions in terms of like making a better campaign. So until Obama, and I was in Chicago back in 2008, when I look into how that team and that campaign work use data-driven marketing decisions in terms of building a better campaign, they do A/B testing, they do multivariate testing, which I've done in corporate work, but they've applied it to campaigns.
What's your academic background, by the way?
So I was in University of Indonesia, FISIP. So maybe I did learn a little bit about politics back then. So communications was my major.
No, but the technicalities of data-driven marketing.
So after that, I've worked in technology companies where I've learned these methods like hands-on at work, and then also I did my MBA at Kellogg, so Northwestern. I specialize in marketing.
That's why you were in Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. I was in the hearts of the election at that time.
Were you just excited by the political process so that you don't mind being involved one way or the other, or were you excited by the prospect of this guy Jokowi coming to the presidency?
So I think it's a little bit of both. So last year when I told you that I was coming back here, I know that there's an election coming up, and with the nature of my work, I was like, there's this huge opportunity in Indonesia where campaigns can actually use data-driven and analytics and digital into campaign. This will be the first time where it's going to happen in Indonesia. In the US, it's been done since 2008, right? And obviously the methods have been improved since then. And then so I came back knowing that I will start my own consulting firm and maybe somehow can get involved in this. Originally, I wasn't really interested in any of the parties or anybody. But I'm more interested in how data-driven strategies can be used to impact a lot of people. And impacting a lot of people means you can get people to buy things, or you can actually make people make decisions on voting. And I think in terms of social impact, the voting is trumps just buying another good or something.
This is professional work. So are you doing this professionally for the campaign?
No.
You're doing this
as a volunteer. So what happened was last year I looked into this, and then earlier this year, it started becoming clear that the remaining candidates are only two, right? So I, up until perhaps 3 months ago, haven't even decided to help the campaign, but I came back from the U.S. exactly 3 months ago after a meeting in San Francisco. I came back and I was looking at the news and was like, oh, it's all over the place. It's
3 months ago.
Yeah, 3 months ago. It's just it started becoming apparent this is going to be the next big thing, and I wasn't technically going to be involved in this. And I think one thing has spurred my decision. One is that first I was looking into it as a learning experience for me, actually being able to influence a huge number of people in terms of something that is crucial and critical. That's one. And I thought, I was like, well, if I'm going to apply this data thing into marketing, when is a better time to do this than a defining presidential election?
But the Prabowo campaign is reputed to engage some modern techniques, including, I suppose, data-driven techniques. So you would have been more at home in that environment.
I think what happened was I looked into these two candidates after a while. I'm, naturally a business person, but at the end of the day, there's a comment that was made in one of my social media feeds, and one of my friends was hosting an internet meme on the other candidates' camp, and in that particular feed, he was saying something along the lines. He was joking, but something along the lines of, "Oh, let's not put too many of these memes out there because I don't want to be kidnapped, or I don't want to or I'm afraid." Ha ha ha! Right? It's a joke. It's funny. It's meant to be funny, but I see that as a wait a minute. This is not 100% humor, but it's also there's some truth to that in a way that makes me I just can't support something like that ever happen again in my country, or even it's just it's 2014. How are we talking about freedom of speech at this point? It's just so backwards that I'm just I just can't support the other candidate, and I obviously that was the original starting point, and I think that's just a small anecdotal story. But the more I look into it, and then obviously after knowing this, then I started looking at the programs and the platform of both candidates and comparing side by side, the 9 pages and the 42 pages that were submitted to KPU and all these things.
Who was your first? Where was your first contact in this organization in the Jokowi campaign?
So
I don't mean names, but what kind of?
Yeah. So what happened was then, early on in the campaign days, there are a lot of different. I immediately realized that in the Jokowi, because I'm not talking about the other candidate because I already know that I want to be supporting Jokowi. So what happened is that I started looking into what is everybody doing, and so. There are a lot of volunteer groups and there are a lot of teams that are already sort of involved but not really jumping into it. This is like very early on, and then suddenly, like he hasn't even announced the VP candidate at that time. So then, the more I started to get involved in this, the more I realized, like everything else in Indonesia, there's how do you say this? There's a lot of vacuum. There's a lot of voids, right? Like
of space, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a lot of people talking, not enough doing.
Right.
So then I decided that if I just start doing things, like naturally the energy or like the flocks will come to whatever it is this small team of mine like are doing. So my team started to just start doing things, and we started getting attention. And then that gets us more leverage into speaking and having access to the candidate themselves. And obviously with the help of a lot of people and a lot of partners into the campaign. And the more we get into it, the more we meet more and more people. And the more we realize who's, have the same vision in terms of like communicating Pak Jokowi's like platform and campaign. And it's...
Have you met Pak Jokowi?
Yeah. Multiple times, because at the end, we ended up owning the largest digital channel for him.
Right. Okay. Let's get to those specifics, because I noted on the TV show that you set up one of the fastest growing Facebook pages. So what's that about? So we realized that Pak Jokowi didn't even he had a Facebook presence. It wasn't properly managed like what a presidential candidate should be, because it was also run by a bunch of volunteers. And these people would sometimes vote, sometimes put something up there, sometimes not. So what we try to do is like, let's set up because 90% of Indonesians use Facebook. It would be a very effective way to get into the people, to communicate, not get into, but communicate with people. It would be a good platform to have if we built this properly. So we started putting all of our resources into two things, three. One is Facebook, his Facebook page, and then the second is his website called effectjokowi.com. And then the third one, we also built a WhatsApp group for people who wants to support him. So leveraging all of these digital assets, we think we own basically the largest channel for him. So you're working with teams of people whom did you not know before, right?
Yeah.
So how is it working with it? I mean, there must be different backgrounds.
Yeah. So what we have done for, originally what we thought is that we try to be the team that supplies content to a lot of the different volunteers, because a lot of different volunteers, as you know, like such as yourself or maybe like any other celebrities or endorsers out there, they all have different, constituents or people that they influence, right? Like most of these people who are already supporting Jokowi, they own certain kinds of masses, right? So for example, like celebrity like Joko Anwar or Sarah, like they own like their Twitter followers, right? And these people already supported Jokowi. And then so originally we thought in the very beginning, we were like, okay, how about if we communicate whatever Jokowi's messaging is into, graphics or something that is beautiful that people can share. So the first step is to become like the content creation machine for these different channels. But then we look into, again, we find voids or vacuums, and we're like, wait a minute, like we have a lot of people that are supporting Jokowi on Twitter. Like the Facebook channel is 90% supposedly active for Indonesia. Like it's like one of the biggest social media for Indonesia.
What's the speed of growth of that Facebook page? Because
it's so
fast.
It was so fast. Like I think in 3 weeks we've gotten about more than 1 million, like 2 million, like in 3 weeks.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
So I mean, we basically caught up to half of what the other candidate has in 5 weeks.
And they worked longer at it.
They worked for 5 years.
Okay.
So we worked on this for 3 weeks, and we gotten like 2 million. And then when you can actually compare the numbers, like the engagement. So for example, like at the fourth week we've done Facebook, 2.5 million likes, for example, on Facebook. And then we have people who are engaged, meaning that they're liking our comment, they're liking our posts, they're commenting, they're sharing, they're very active. It's 2.6 million.
So what's the name of this page?
You can, Facebook.com/JKW official.
JKW official.
Yeah,
Okay.
JKW official. So we have more than 100% people engaged. Meanwhile, if you look at any other political candidates out there in the world, very rarely they get 100% engagement. I mean, I think even on the other candidate, it's like about like 50. I mean, that's huge. Still, it's a big number because he has a lot of more likes, right? So that is already impressive. But this is, we're just blown away with the, with how active people are. And, Jokowi himself is such a, already like a great brand to work with, if we want to call him a product or brand, right?
Strong brand.
It's very strong. And the more we realize this, it's not just the perception, but also like the substance of him, the vision and mission and platform. People actually spend time to look into it.
As you got to know him better, met him multiple times, did you get disappointed by the substance behind the brand?
No,
No,
not at all. And I'm very impressed with, despite all of the obstacles that they have, like the campaign has. For example,
let's talk about today, because there's some ominous threatening signs out there. Prabowo saying losing is not an option. Prabowo and BBC indicating he clearly is not going to disappear, and Espinal's analysis of his game plan, which some say is coming true.
Yeah.
Does it create worry for you guys? Or do you have a retort to that? Do you have an answer to those matters?
I'm very pragmatic and very realistic. Like, I just think they're, how do I even say this? Like, I think it's very, we know that we won the votes of the people, and how can that decision be overturned in the next 8 days? Like, it would take so much effort and not include money, resources, whatever, from the other candidate to do it, to overturn it, because this is the true voice of the people.
So you feel, you're sure that the momentum is there for Jokowi, that it's strong enough to withstand. Well, that's nice to know. I think that's one statement I will broadcast, because some people are worried. Yesterday I was interviewed on this English channel, and they said some of our friends are leaving the country, some say they will. There's a fear factor. Do you think it's true? I said, well, probably the biggest cause of the fear factor is fear itself, because I think this quick count is genuine.
I think you made a great point. For me, one of the things that I realized now that I've been back here is that a lot of our people, especially in the middle class and higher income people, I somehow see a lack of faith in terms of our own people and Indonesians, right? We still think we were brainwashed since 20, 25 years, 30 something years ago, that these people are, not as educated, it's like we haven't moved on beyond that. There's lack of belief and faith that Indonesians are smart enough to make decisions.
That's
right?
Another important statement. Prabowo said Indonesians are stupid, etc.
Yeah.
I think he actually believes that, and he does not know that people are not stupid.
No, you'll be surprised. How many focus groups, how many interviews, how many people we have met across different groups of people, and have intelligent statements on how they're making decisions, right? And yet somehow the anecdotes that we're hearing, it's obvious because people like to share bad news rather than positive good news. If somebody, I take cabs, I take taxi everywhere, for example, and I would just talking to taxi drivers, and they make they actually read the news, and they're BBM subsidy, this types of even policy driven statements, right? And obviously people understand what human rights are, from the basic level up to until the more intellectual,
Were you aware of the human rights issue before you joined this campaign?
Yeah.
Okay. Ini berapa menit lagi? Oh, okay. We will just wrap up. So you are, well, you have an obvious answer. You have confidence that I keep slipping the name. That Jokowi's victory is real, and we just have to stand firm.
Yeah.
After that, how do you see your own role? Obviously, you have a business to run. It's not necessarily selling IDs. You might have to sell soap and software or whatever.
Phones, apps.
Phones, apps. So where do you see your future?
I think it'd be great for me to, I don't know, I would love to look into causes that I believe in. I think this whole experience what I've learned so far, again, because of there's still a lot of room to improve in terms of policy, in terms like moving people or getting people involved. Like I'd like to see more of that, either from a not-for-profit organizations or even some kind of causes that I can support. I want to be involved in that.
The final big idea I want to discuss with you is, the rumors the other side is using this guy Rob Allen or whoever, American consultant, and this side, probably you are the counterpart to him.
No, I'm not.
Only you don't lie, you don't mock.
Political campaigns is so, there are a lot of different groups and constituents, and also like different, how would you say that, like, in terms of becoming a campaign, there's like grassroots, there's like, people, like, events, like there's like, people who are in touch. I basically have the opportunity to influence the strategy for youth, for young voters, and also, we're using digital channels, and that's kind of like where I see the role in this campaign. But on top of that, there's obviously like, debate prep, like there's like the policy team, there's like, it's huge, right? Like, so I don't think I'm a chief campaign strategist yet. Maybe if Jokowi wants to hire me in the next 5 years after, I think that would be a great opportunity. But so far, like digital and, influencing people from first-time voters up until maybe mid-30s is where I see like where this team's role is involved. So.
Thank you, Farina. An honor and a pleasure knowing you.
Nice to meet you so much. Salaman nggak?
Yes. Foto. Nggak usah selfie, foto opportunity. Ini pertama kali saya nginjakan kaki di posko Jokowi.
Okay.
People think I'm part of a campaign. Yeah, I'm just for my bedroom. But I'm just so take off by this